The first time Orion Jackson met the Zorellians, he was already bleeding. It hadn't been part of the plan. The mission brief, delivered with sterile optimism by Fleet Command, had described the diplomatic exchange as low risk, high opportunity. Nothing about jagged metal edges or unstable atmospheric locks had been mentioned. And yet there he was, 30 feet inside the Zorellian cruiser's docking bay, clutching his left forearm, red seeping through the torn sleeve of his uniform. He didn't panic. Not because it wasn't painful it was, but because he was trained. He tightened the fabric above the wound and looked around for the medkit he'd been told would be stationed at every access point. Instead, he found 3 Zorellians frozen in place, their skin a translucent gray-green, their large eyes locked on the blood now dripping onto the clean floor. The tallest one twitched. "Is it? Excreting internal fluid." "Yeah, it's bleeding," Orion said, keeping his voice steady. "It's just a cut. Do you guys have a band-aid or something?" The shortest Zorellian emitted a noise that sounded like someone squeezing a balloon underwater. "Band-aid," Orion straightened, felt dizzy, and leaned back against the wall. "You know, adhesive bandage, small, covers wounds." The third alien bolted from the room, making a high-pitched squeal that echoed down the corridor. The tall one inched forward, voice trembling. "You are losing life matter. You need containment, isolation, immediate biostasis." "I need a band-aid," Orion repeated, this time a little less casually because the floor was starting to tilt. A moment later, the alien who had fled returned with a hovering med drone the size of a small refrigerator. It was covered in blinking orange lights and trailing a half-dozen mechanical arms tipped with glittering tools Orion didn't recognize. "Whoa, whoa," Orion said, trying to push himself upright. "That thing looks like it's about to do surgery. I just need." The drone scanned him, beeped, and then extended a thin needle. "Nope," Orion muttered, stepping back, but the room shifted and his knee gave out. He hit the floor, catching himself with his good arm. The Zorellians erupted in a frenzy of panic. One shouted something in their native tongue, translated roughly by the calm implant in Orion's ear as the human is collapsing. "Initiate protocol red," while another started issuing commands to the drone. "Stop," Orion barked. "I just need a basic medkit, gauze, tape, maybe some antiseptic." The drone hesitated mid-injection. The lead Zorellian turned to him. "You are not dying." "I'm not dying," Orion said, breathing hard. The Zorellian stared at him. The one with the most visible facial ridges stepped forward cautiously. "But your outer casing is breached." "It's skin," Orion clarified. "It regenerates." There was a long pause. "How?" Orion blinked. "How do you not know this? Didn't you study human biology? We were told your species is durable, but you are leaking. How does it reseal?" "With time," Orion said, shifting to sit upright. "And a band-aid or stitches, depending." Another pause. The drone backed away slowly. "You're telling me," the short Zorellian said, "that this," it pointed at the red streak on Orion's arm, "will repair itself?" "Yeah," Orion said. "But I'd rather get it cleaned and covered before it gets infected." "Infected?" the tall one asked, clearly horrified. "Contaminated by bacteria." The 3 aliens took an instinctive step back, Orion sighed. "It's fine, okay, just help me up." The short one extended a long, fingered hand. Orion grabbed it gentler than he expected and stood with a wince. They led him down the corridor, past iridescent corridors and humming data conduits, to what passed for a medical bay. It smelled like ozone and something citrusy. The walls pulsed gently with light. The alien medic, a 4-limbed creature named Rel, approached cautiously, scanning Orion with a handheld device. "You sustained a dermal rupture," Rel said. "Approximately 4 centimeters in length, blood loss within acceptable limits, no muscular damage." Orion nodded. "Can you clean it and wrap it up?" Rel hesitated. "We do not have band-aids, fine, gauze and tape. Sterile wrapping and adhesive sealant, yes. Close enough." Rel retrieved the items and with surprising delicacy began cleaning the wound. Orion winced as the antiseptic stung. You should have reported the injury immediately, Rel said. I tried, Orion muttered. You guys looked like I'd been impaled. Rel looked confused. Impaled? Never mind. Once the bandage was in place, Orion leaned back on the metallic bench, breathing easier. So, he said, this how you treat all visitors. We were not prepared for such. Casual damage, casual? Orion laughed, then winced. I almost passed out. Your demeanor did not suggest distress. I'm ex-military, Orion said. Pain's not new. Rel looked at him as if he had sprouted a second head. Your species tolerates pain. We tolerate a lot of things. Comes with living on a planet where everything's trying to kill you. Rel turned to the others. We must revise our biological profiles. Their survival mechanisms are inefficient yet persistent. Thanks, Orion said dryly. Later, after being cleared by Rel and given a nutrient drink that tasted like warm celery, Orion was escorted to the diplomatic chamber. Ambassador Tharn, a high-ranking Zorellian with a shimmering blue neck crest, greeted him with an awkward bow. I was informed of your injury. All patched up, Orion said, lifting his arm slightly. No hard feelings. You requested a band-aid. Still do, Orion said. You guys should stock some. Tharn looked troubled. We will consult our xenomedical division. The meeting proceeded with only minor interruptions, mainly when Orion shifted and winced, prompting another flurry of concerned glances. Afterward, as he was walking back to the human quarters aboard the cruiser, a young Zorellian aide approached. Sir Jackson, Orion's fine. I have a question, the aide said, hesitating. When you lose blood, how do you know when it's too much? Orion considered. You get dizzy, cold. Heart races. Eventually you pass out. The aide looked horrified, and yet you walk not comfortably. He gave a weak smile. But yeah. The aide bowed slightly and scurried off, muttering in their language in his quarters. Orion sat down, peeled back the bandage, and checked the wound. Still raw, but clean. He rewrapped it carefully, then leaned back with a sigh. A message pinged from the ship's console, medical update from Earth Command. He opened it and skimmed. Just a scratch, he said aloud, then glanced at the bandage again. But I'm milking it for all it's worth. He lay back, closed his eyes, and let the silence of the alien ship settle over him. Somewhere down the hall, a Zorellian was probably filling out a 10-page report on the dangers of paper cuts. He smiled faintly. Orion woke up to an unfamiliar vibration under his bunk, more like a subsonic hum than a tremor. It shivered through the soles of his feet the moment he stood, making his teeth feel oddly loose. Whatever it wasn't part of the ship's regular systems. He pulled on his uniform jacket, still a little stiff from yesterday's chaos, and stepped into the corridor. A Zorellian maintenance crew was clustered at the far end, gathered around a glowing panel that pulsed with amber light. One of them tapped at the console with a narrow digit, while another flared its thoracic ridges in what Orion guessed was either frustration or indigestion. You folks all right? He asked, heading toward them. The tallest one turned. Vibration in Deck 3. We suspect coolant resonance interference. I don't know what that means, but it feels like I'm standing on a speaker at a rock concert. Blank stares, like rhythmic tremors, low frequency, feels weird. The crew lead blinked slowly. You detect the vibration physically? Yeah, don't you? We measure it, not feel it. Guess humans are wired different, Orion said, stretching his neck. Anything I can do to help, the shortest one hissed. You are not authorized technical personnel. I've installed a garbage disposal before, if that counts. None of them responded. The lead simply gestured toward the corridor. Please evacuate this sector while recalibration occurs. Got it. Tell me if the ship starts melting. He turned away and headed toward the galley, where the ship's food preparation knowed an ovoid structure that looked like a vending machine designed by a hallucinating architect, emitted a gentle chime as he approached. The interface lit up with options in 4 languages, only one of which was legible. Let's try something that doesn't taste like damp leaves this time, he muttered. The dispenser made a whirring sound, then deposited a bowl of something beige and gelatinous into the slot. He stared at it. Looks like Flan and Regret had a baby. He poked it with the tiny two-pronged utensil provided. It trembled slightly but didn't fall apart. He sighed and took a bite. It tasted like lukewarm almond milk mixed with cornstarch. "You're eating that?" a voice asked. He turned. The young Zorellian aide from the day before stood in the doorway, holding a tablet nearly half its height. "Didn't catch your name yesterday." "Designate, Paline. I am a diplomatic adjunct, Orion," he said, gesturing at the seat across from him. "Want to sit?" Paline hesitated, then lowered itself onto the opposite bench. "I have compiled questions. Fire away." The aide tapped the tablet. "How do humans survive with so many systemic vulnerabilities? That's a hell of an opener. You possess exposed sensory organs. Your skeletal structure is internal, you have no redundant hearts, and you rely on a single oxygen processing cavity." "Lungs," Orion said. "And yeah, just the one set." Paline looked perplexed. "And yet you run, you climb, you engage in high-impact activities." "Why? Because we can. But the risk of damage is statistically significant." "Sure," Orion said, "but the payoff's worth it. Adrenaline, endorphins, makes you feel alive." Paline blinked twice. "You seek sensation despite threat. That's kind of our brand." The aide's fingers danced across the tablet. "You bleed under minimal force, only if you hit the right spots. Your skin ruptures under compression thresholds that would not compromise a Zorellian exosuit, which is why we invented padding. Why not evolve protective dermis? Because evolution doesn't take requests." Paline tapped a final note, then looked up. "I have never encountered a species that treats frailty as routine." "We don't think of it as frailty, just part of the package." There was a pause. "You fascinate us, terrify us. But mostly, we do not understand how you continue functioning." "Same way you calibrate your coolant," Orion said, pushing the bowl away. Trial and error. Later, as the artificial light cycle shifted to mimic early dusk, Orion was escorted to the observation deck by a junior liaison who didn't speak, only gestured. The room was vast, with a transparent dome overhead revealing a star field that looked like it had been painted by someone with a love for chaos. 3 moons drifted past the viewport, each a different shade of violet. Ambassador Tharn stood near the edge, hands clasped behind his back. "You've adjusted well," the ambassador said without turning. "Still working on the food," Orion replied. Tharn offered a soft hum. "We consulted your Earth medical database. About the cut, about your biology, your pain tolerance, your regenerative capacity. Your cognitive function during trauma." Orion leaned on the railing. "Let me guess, still doesn't make sense." "No, but it prompted a reevaluation of our assumptions." Tharn turned then, his posture unusually direct. "We would like to understand how you endure damage without incapacitation." "Not out of fascination, but necessity." Orion narrowed his eyes. "You think we're more useful broken than whole? No, we believe your response to damage reveals something critical about adaptability, about persistence. You want to study how we cope?" "Yes." Orion folded his arms. "And what do I get out of it?" "Cooperation," Tharn said, "trust, and perhaps the chance to influence how we interface with future species." He considered this. "I'm not a doctor. You are a representative. And you've already taught us more by bleeding than 100 files ever could." "I can give you examples," Orion said. "Historical ones. People who ran marathons on broken bones, climbed mountains after amputations. Soldiers who kept going after being shot. Why? Because stopping wasn't an option. They stood in silence for a moment, the stars wheeling slowly above them. We once misjudged a species that self-immolated as ritual," Tharn said. "We assumed they were without reason. It turned out they were mourning their dead with fire, honoring them." "Big difference," Orion said. "Context matters." "It always does." Tharn gave a short nod. "Tomorrow we would like you to meet our medical advisors. They will not prod you, only listen, ask. I'll come." Orion said. But I'm not letting anyone poke me again. No poking. Good. The lights dimmed slightly, signaling the start of the rest cycle. Orion headed back through the corridor, passing a group of Zorellians whispering near a biometric panel. One of them paused, glanced at him, then quickly looked away. Inside his quarters, he pulled off his jacket and checked the bandage. He peeled it back gently. The wound had scabbed over, dry and dark. No swelling, no discharge, healing fine. He cleaned it again with a wipe from his kit, recovered it, then sat on the edge of the bunk. Outside his door, a soft ping echoed. He opened it to find Pauline standing there, holding a small box. "What's this?" "A prototype," the aide said. "We synthesized it based on your descriptions." Inside the box were 6 strips of sterile gauze, each individually wrapped. Next to them, adhesive seals in varying shapes, rounded, rectangular, star-shaped for some reason. Orion pulled one out. The material was soft, flexible, and faintly lavender. "You made band-aids. We hope they meet your requirements." He held up the star-shaped one. "This is either brilliant or completely unnecessary. We have not yet mastered human aesthetic logic. You're getting closer." Pauline hovered a little longer, then stepped back. "Good rest, Orion. You too." The door shut. Orion turned the box over in his hands, then placed it carefully on the desk. A band-aid, designed by aliens, because he cut his arm. He lay back on the bunk and stared at the ceiling somewhere. A report was being filed. A species that could heal from open wounds. That could laugh through the pain. That could terrify a technologically superior race not by fighting, but by staying upright when it hurt. He reached over, dimmed the lights, and closed his eyes. He'd teach them everything they wanted to know. They just had to be ready for the answers. By the 3rd day aboard the Zorellian cruiser, Orion's arm had stopped aching completely. The wound had scabbed over, and the lavender alien bandage, now replaced twice, held up surprisingly well. The adhesive didn't irritate his skin, and it even smelled faintly like mint. He'd almost miss it when it peeled off for good. He stepped into the consultation chamber at what passed for mid-cycle aboard the ship. The walls shimmered faint blue, and the air smelled faintly metallic, like someone had over-sanitized the place. It wasn't a medical bay this time. No needles, no drones, no humming diagnostics. Just 6 Zorellians perched on various levels of a tiered dais, each wearing a different shade of robe. The colors, he'd learned, indicated academic specialty. The one in jade green was a behavioral analyst. The one in deep rust red specialized in trauma responses. The rest he hadn't quite figured out yet. Pauline stood off to the side, tablet in hand, not speaking. "You're punctual," said the rust-robed one, voice filtered through the translator with a faint rasp. "I was promised no poking," Orion replied, settling into the curved seat they'd shaped to approximate a human spine. It was still too straight. "No physical examination," said the green-robed Zorellian. "We are here to understand your behavioral patterns in relation to biological compromise." Fancy way of saying you want to know why I didn't freak out. Incorrect. "We want to understand why you continued to function after injury without prioritizing isolation or immobility." Orion adjusted in the seat. "Because it wasn't that bad. 4-centimeter laceration, shallow. No arterial involvement, no fat layer exposed. Bleeding stopped after compression." "That's not a medical emergency. Your threshold for what constitutes distress is inconsistent with our models." He raised an eyebrow. "Is that a polite way of saying you think I'm reckless? We consider the possibility that your species undervalues self-preservation. Have you ever been in a house with 4 siblings and 1 bathroom? You learn to triage fast." There was a pause as multiple Zorellians tapped tablets. The orange-robed one spoke next. "Your initial reaction to injury included humor. Is this a defense mechanism? Sometimes. Other times it's just how we process stress. You made a request for a band-aid with minimal emotional emphasis. Was this deliberate understatement? No, I just didn't want to make it a big deal. Drawing attention to something can make it feel worse than it is. Plus, panic spreads fast. I've seen it happen. Yet you were alone among us. Doesn't matter. We're wired to read a room. If I'd panicked, you would have panicked more. That doesn't help anyone. The rust-robed medic leaned forward. This instinct to manage others' emotional states during personal crisis, does it come from training? Partially. But even civilians do it. Parents, teachers, even kids sometimes. You learn early that staying calm helps the people around you stay calm. The blue-robed one finally spoke. You consider emotional regulation a form of responsibility. Yeah, especially in emergencies. Fascinating, said the green-robed analyst. We previously believed emotional suppression was indicative of malfunction. It's not suppression, it's just parking the panic until there's time for it. Where does it go? Sometimes. Nowhere, but you get through the moment. The orange-robed Zorellian tapped something. What is the typical human response to seeing one's own internal fluids? Depends on the person. Some faint, some throw up, some don't even blink. And you? I've had worse. This wasn't worth drama. Palline stepped forward. Your records indicate prior exposure to battlefield trauma. That's not public info. You authorized full clearance after the incident, right? He had. In the moment, it hadn't seemed like a big deal. I've done triage under fire. Helped seal wounds with a field cauterizer while shrapnel was still hot. This, he raised his arms slightly, this was a paper cut with ambition. Your analogies are difficult to categorize, said the rust-robed one. Get used to it. There was a pause while the group conferred silently, some kind of short-range neural link he couldn't tap into. Eventually, the orange-robed Zorellian turned back. We have adapted our emergency response protocols. Future injuries will be addressed with context-specific tools and without escalation unless necessary. Glad to hear it. You might want to teach your drones the difference between a gash and a life-threatening injury. Retraining has already begun. Palline looked up from the tablet. We have also included adhesive wound closures in our first contact kits. Orion chuckled. Your stocking band aids now. We have replicated 7 sizes and 2 levels of absorbency. The star-shaped design remains optional. Keep that one. Kids'll love it. The blue-robed analyst tilted its head. You maintain humor even during analytical review. It's not a switch I flip, it's just there. Does it ever interfere with clarity? Sometimes, but it also keeps people engaged. You remember what you laugh at. The rust-robed Zorellian leaned back. We underestimated the role of psychological resilience in biological survival. It's not separate, one feeds the other. The group nodded in eerie synchronization. After a few more questions, none invasive, though one did involve a surprising interest in human scab formation, they concluded the session. As Orion stood to leave, Palline walked beside him. You did not appear disturbed by the questions. Talking's easy, bleeding in front of strangers. That's harder. You made the incident seem minor, because it was, to you. Orion paused in the corridor. Yeah, to me, you've got bio-armor and redundant organs. We've got duct tape and stubbornness. We make do. Palline looked uncertain. Is it enough? It has to be. We've survived this long. They reached the junction near Orion's quarters. Before stepping inside, he turned. Hey, Palline? Yes? Thanks for the band aids. They are officially designated dermal emergency seals. I'll stick with band aids. Palline gave a nod, then turned down the corridor, tablet cradled in both hands. Inside, Orion peeled off his jacket and dropped onto the bunk. He tugged up the sleeve and gently removed the bandage. The scab had flattened, dark and dry, no signs of infection. He ran a clean wipe over it, then left it uncovered. The skin would handle the rest. He leaned back and stared at the ceiling. Somewhere in the ship's medvault now existed a file titled Human Resilience, Observational Report. It probably included a diagram of his arm and a footnote about humor as a coping mechanism. He'd never meant to be a case study. But if a scraped elbow got them to rethink their assumptions, it was worth it. The lights dimmed on their own, shifting to a soft, ambient glow. No more questions. No more scans. No more aliens thinking he was about to die from a scratch. Just a healing wound and a box of alien band aids in the drawer. That was enough.